Thank you and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this next session of the presented by FenixCommerce, our e-commerce industry webinars. And today, this session, we're going to be covering order routing and how it can increase your brand profitability from shipping and improve your customer experience all at the same time. So we're looking forward to this, and thank you for coming. And you have the opportunity to also ask questions throughout the session and even towards the end by using the chat function. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail around how Phoenix's AI-based order routing, when deployed properly, can increase your shipping revenue 40%, 90%, even 2.5 times by motivating your shoppers to increase the percentage of times they select upgraded shipping options. We'll also talk about how order routing can reduce your split shipments up to 92%, and we'll give you an example of one of our clients, and that will drive much lower fulfillment, packaging, carrier costs. Then brought together with this to be able to reduce cart abandonment and increase incremental conversion lift 5 to 15%. We want to be able to show you how order routing can be a key component of dynamic shipping, and that can be a new profit tool in your toolkit. And using this same capability, you can offer dynamic shipping promotions to customers, all pre-purchase in the checkout. So next step here, let me introduce our two panelists today. And they're both industry experts coming from a little bit different e-commerce backgrounds. First, we have Mark Riskowitz. Mark is a VP of operations for Caraway, including carawayhome.com. He's been with them for about the last 4 years, and he leads all components of their end-to-end operations function, including supply chain, customer experience, business expansion, and internal systems. And then secondly, we have another colleague of mine, Zalowitz, who's a VP of Digital Experience and Technology, formerly with the Foot Locker and earlier with J&J. He's a recognized retail industry expert in order management and multi-channel commerce, having worked for and with such OMS software companies, including Manhattan Associates, IBM Sterling, Aptos, and Corber OMS Solutions. So Mark, Zach, thank you both for being here today. Looking forward to this session. And as a way of opening this up, I'd like each of you to kind of sort of briefly give a little bit more background. And Mark, if I can start with you, can you please tell us a little bit about Caraway, the brand, and its mission?
Absolutely. So thanks, Don, for having me today. And Zach, of course, it's a pleasure to be here with you. So Caraway Home, as mentioned, is an omnichannel retailer of high-end kitchenware. So our mission is to really just elevate what you cook with in your home. We try to do this in a high utility, a sort of a safer alternative to what's on the market today. And just do it in style and, with high design and an aesthetic that you could really just appreciate in your day-to-day life. So we've been retailing for about 4 years now, and we're excited to be here and just to share some of the journey with the folks tuned in.
Great, thank you. Zach, how about if you can tell us a little bit about your experience with Foot Locker in the digital experience area?
Yeah, sure. Great to be here with you, Don, and as well with you, Mark. So I was previously with Foot Locker, where I led global digital tech, product management from an experience design perspective, and all of marketing tech globally across all the digital assets, so web and mobile app. And prior to that, as you mentioned, Don, I spent about 15 years in the order management post-purchase space, starting with Manhattan Associates, did some independent consulting around change management and operational consulting. And I product managed Invista Corber's solution. So all in all, ran through pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase across the last 15 years for a lot of enterprise retailers. So good to be here with you today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you both. And so with that, I'd like to start our session now. And really first off, just by asking you, Zach, can you kind of briefly level set for our audience some key economic issues that are affecting retailers and brands today?
Yeah, sure. So I don't think I have to tell anyone on this call. It's been a pretty wild 3 to 4 last years. We started with COVID lockdowns. We've seen disruptions with inventory disruptions with labor as well at port and broader shipping delays. And most recently with inflation in the news just about every day. So I think from an economic standpoint, everyone is seeing and hearing and feeling a lot of that disruption, and it's carrying over even after COVID's over. But from the consumer's perspective, none of that really matters. I think the standard decades ago now was set with 2-day delivery with Amazon, and the consumer's not only expecting that 2-day, but even more so now, I think even a faster delivery and the convenience of buy anywhere, return anywhere is even more becoming the standard now. So we have all this going on around us as well, but it's funny, the trend line is actually faster deliveries and more convenient order management and order maintenance. And so those two together is I think the trend we're seeing as of late.
Yeah, I'd second that, I feel, pretty much fully aligned with that, same sentiments that we're seeing. And it's interesting to see the viewpoint of how a lot of the macroeconomic factors don't necessarily always translate into purchasing decisions and that user journey. So yeah, it's a fascinating time, and hopefully we're looking towards a better trend in the coming years, but I guess time will tell.
So in other words, the macro is really what the buyer cares about. It's my macro. Exactly. Right. All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you. Well, thanks for that kind of initial level set, Zach. So Mark, let me follow up with you with that kind of backdrop. What problems were you facing that kind of helped drive your decision to work with FenixCommerce, and in particular around order routing? And as I understand, it was kind of a unique way that you learned about Phoenix. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'll start with that one. So I think I stumbled upon Akhilesh, the CEO's post one day that had an example of a checkout experience that didn't really convey delivery dates properly, and that checkout was Caraway's. So I sort of got a little bit triggered, but a little bit impressed at the same time, as it's a very interesting way of trying to sort of inject a sort of sales opportunity from a SaaS platform. So he was right on point. We prior to Phoenix had pretty vague estimated date ranges that didn't really convey a lot of conviction to customers, didn't really provide multiple options at checkout. So the timing was pretty coincidental, because we were kind of on that cusp of saying, how can we leverage our multi-node approach to carry options and tools that we have to better produce a date and an expectation for our customers that's a bit more concrete and reliable. So it's funny how that kind of worked out. And yeah, ultimately, we've started to level up that whole process, and, it starts with checkout. And right now we do provide a couple of different options for our customers, and we have very fixed and convincing dates that you can plan your purchases on today. So, and we're just getting started at this point with the software and the tools that we are seeing.
Yeah, as you were saying that, Mark, I just pulled up there. I hope everyone can see. This is an example of your checkout page right now.
Yeah, exactly. So perfect example here. I mean, we kind of think about the approach of providing optionality to our customer base. Some folks may not require a mass cookware set, which, by the way, is my favorite. So I'm glad you picked this example. But essentially providing this option, if it's something you need a bit sooner and you wanted to pay up a little bit, you do have that option to select a preferred service, which does get to you a little bit quicker and has a higher priority throughout the process. And so the whole idea is that we want to continue offering suites of services and options to customers, and over time probably build out the shipping method choice a lot more, and start finding that sort of secret sauce of what really works for our customers.
Okay, well, great. So then, Zach, from your experience, if getting something up and running, and Mark, I think you would agree that I think we got this initial solution up for you, I believe in, less than 2 weeks. So what they saw there on checkout and what was working in the background. So let me just ask you, Zach, from the industry perspective, if it's this easy to give that kind of experience at checkout, why isn't everyone doing it? Are there some particular hurdles that, enterprise retailers and others are struggling with here?
Yeah, great question, Don. It's typically for at least one of three reasons, if not all three together. So first off, anyone on the brand side will tell you it's sometimes pretty hard to get things prioritized, and you definitely need to come with the data points and the metrics and the value gain. So prioritization is a big one. I see just getting started out, understanding what you expect to gain and having the business case ready to go is, I think, probably a huge hurdle up front. From there, it becomes a question of functionality. Maybe you haven't upgraded to an OMS or a solution like Phoenix, and so functionally, you don't have this capability to do in real time. I see a lot of the brands that are using more legacy software here, or even ERPs as a stand-in for an OMS, are often challenged functionally. And then probably the third bucket you probably see is more from a scaling and an infrastructure perspective. So we were doing high order volume at Foot Locker, a lot of big flash sales, and those types. You need to be able to scale the infrastructure quickly to make that amount of calls. And it gets even worse as you try to come up funnel and into the PDP and PLP to start to show some of these availability dates as an outcome of the order routing, pre-purchase, pre-submit. So it's any number of those factors. Sometimes, in worst case, it's all three combined. The business case, the functionality, and the technical scaling are hurdles to overcome, but they're overcomable hurdles at the same time. So,
okay. Well, that's a great way of framing it up. And I want to go deeper into that. But before I do, I mean, Mark, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did any of those things that Zach just mentioned resonate at all with you and your team in getting to the decision of moving forward with putting that kind of experience on Caraway home checkout?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, not to speak too much about digital product, we have a fantastic team that, and engineers and leaders in that space that really know a lot more about this than I do. But essentially, we have so much going on, so many different sort of pieces to the pie that need to work together and interact in the same format to ensure that we're thinking about every possible hurdle in the customer journey from the moment they hit our website through to when they, finally do purchase, through even to that sort of delivery point as well. And so I think that understanding some of those flows from a sort of digital, technical, and operational mindset is definitely the homework you need to do first before exploring what is out there. And I think that, I personally have the feeling that that work is not for platforms like Phoenix and Ads to sort of educate too much with customers. I think it's more about understanding your own ecosystem and where you can find those opportunities and work from that point outwards. So yeah, I think there's a lot of sort of conflicts and challenges that might come up in terms of how you structure that. But as long as you have the opportunity to explore, you should be on your way.
Okay, then if I think about how you framed it up there, Mark, then there are, a number of real world challenges that you were dealing with organizationally. You talk about your business, your own ecosystem and stuff. So Zach, let me come back to you and, taking sort of your three buckets and what Mark is saying there, but going deeper. Are there some KPIs, for instance, that maybe retailers should be thinking about with their own business or where their segment that they're competing in, that they really ought to identify upfront if they're going to be making these kinds of improvements to their pre-purchase experience?
Yeah, I think it's overlooked pretty often, Don, to be honest with you. So in the pre-purchase realm, as opposed to post-purchase, where order management really kicks in, there's definitely three KPIs that every digital group is measuring, except I think the impact of those is important both before in creating a baseline and then after. And so the common ones you see are the add to cart rate. Next, you see the cart abandonment rate, and then the conversion overall. And so as you think of like what would draw someone to add something to the cart, well, you need, for example, estimated delivery date to be there on the product display page. Even better if it's on a listing page or a category list page as well. Mm-hmm. So adding to carts definitely impacted by whether or not you're going to be able to commit a date, not just a range, but an actual date. And that date comes from an order routing solution, typically in an OMS. Then from an abandonment perspective, the second KPI is, they put it in their cart, but did they carry through the rest of the process? Maybe that's user experience. Maybe it's UI design related. Maybe it's lack of payment options. It's a myriad of different reasons, but cart abandonment is definitely impacted by this whole shipping conversation, estimated date. Again, a huge tie back into an OMS. And then basically you're left with conversion. So did they commit? Did you get them to hit place order? And then from there, what is the experience like afterwards? Has a lot to do with net promoter score and overall customer sat. So those first three plus those other two, just generally around experience, have to be monitored if you're going to put in any solution in play to start to commit dates through an order routing service.
Okay. Can you then sort of take that the set of KPIs and as I listen to you, I'm thinking about working with my own clients and how they've sort of envisioned some of that in their business. But let's add an additional layer of complexity to it where order routing is really needed. And you're in a multinodal network now. I'm shipping from multiple places. Mark, you guys ship from I think at least 2 DC locations. Is there anything additional that comes into mind that either needs to be measured or needs to be brought into consideration when you have that kind of a multinodal network?
Yeah, so you have to nail those 3. And then the really big one that I think is getting a lot of attention lately with shipping cost increasing is split shipment KPI. Okay, so that has everything to do with the strategies you put in place. And in order routing solutions, rewind 20 years ago if you want, they were a lot of if then else rules, right? So go to the distribution center. Typically, if you're a large tier 1 omni-channel retailer, then go to the big store, and go to the smaller stores and do that geographically, right? So those were heuristics, rule sets. You see kind of more modern services, microservices, providers like you guys in Phoenix, where you're moving into AI and machine learning backed decisioning. So in this example, you actually just weight what's important to you now. So you split shipment, coming back to split shipments, if you want to throw more importance into that in an order routing solution, you got to be prepared perhaps for a little bit of higher transportation spend as you're to keep the order together. Likely you're going to a store maybe a little further away, but then you might be saving or increasing labor utilization in those stores that are perhaps a little bit further away from the city center or the main area that you're sourcing around. So all of this is just weighted. And I think the movement you're seeing in order routing solutions with respect to split shipments is now you can dial up what's important to you. And so you can suppress the amount of split shipments. I think I actually saw your post on a week or 2 ago about like a case study you had here, but it's amazing what you can do once you dial that lever up. I think you guys had a post last week. Was it?
Yeah, we do. In fact, one of our clients, Dermalogica, when they came to us, they were suffering from split shipments quite a bit. They had 3 legacy warehouses, and they wanted to move to a network with a 3PL, and ultimately they're at 6 locations now and transition some legacy off and bring on these new ones. The problem is their carts are almost always multiple items, and it was very rules based, if and then, and so items were getting shipped from all over the place. Within 30 days of implementing order routing with Phoenix and having the delivery dates, they saw that their split shipments decreased by 92% because orders were being routed where all of the items in the cart to a location that had all those items in inventory. And it's that inventory location connection that enabled it to do that. And so they got the benefit from that very quickly. They added more ship from locations. And to your point, maybe a given warehouse is further away, but they felt that the savings they got in packaging, carrier spend, even the labor in their warehouses, more than made up for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mark, let me kind of bring you up or bring you into this a little bit too. Zach just gave us a great analysis of the types of KPIs that are important out there. Is there anything in particular that you use, whether it's those or something else, to help monitor how it's going for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. putting on the operations hat a bit more, we certainly, the team and I lean far more into cost optimization and try and find that sort of perfect balance of how do we excel on the customer experience while managing costs. And so, the idea of controlling split shipments, but then also this idea of having the choice between, do we want to force products and items to ship out of one location, and maybe we lose a day in terms of the sort of best option we can provide from a routing perspective if inventory is not in the exact perfect place? Or do we want to, take the more sort of customer centric approach where we say, hey, look, we can get these items to you far quicker, but then we do sort of compromise on cost a little bit. That equation and that balance is obviously up to you as an organization, what's important. Right. And I think the key for us is having the ability to choose what is important and to experiment, with those things. So, if something is going to incrementally cost a little bit more, but it's going to drive that conversion up a ton, and you're going to see a much higher checkout rate, obviously thinking about this in a vacuum, then, perhaps that is worth the investment. You can sort of almost see that as a additional acquisition cost. And so I think having those tools at your disposal is super helpful. And then where it gets really interesting is, the data from an operational side of cutoff times, SLAs, pick to scan ratios and rates that we see. That allows us to, get the data around what we're seeing and what how our 3PLs are performing, and then use that information as the configuration for each location to say, to better serve those delivery dates to customers, so that we're not overpromising, nor are we sandbagging too much, if we are delivering products a lot quicker. So we monitor those extremely closely every day. And if we are seeing changes or trends that work in favor of what we can provide to customers, we do make those updates, which the platform does allow for pretty easily.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think that's great. And it's good that you feel that you have the choice as well, too, of how you want to manage that, because I think that's ultimately, to your point also, Zach, of moving to an AI-based model where you're weighting factors. Those factors are going to vary, whichever, whether size of retailer, what segment you're playing in, what your customer, what your brand mission is. So we want to equip you to make those kinds of weights. So talk a little bit more about the customer experience of this, because we've been talking about how, the order routing provides for a number of benefits for the retailer and sort of the guts of how it's working. But what we also want to cover here is ultimately how can we use this and be profitable, but also improve that customer experience. So Zach, can you talk a little bit and maybe offer up a few examples of retailers that maybe now are realizing the importance of estimated delivery dates and order routing to meet, maybe ever stringent customer expectations?
Yeah, sure. So 3-4 years ago, I was working with a leading consumer packaged goods organization, large footprint, both in distribution centers and 1,000+ stores. And so from a conversion standpoint, we're definitely seeing increases in the single digits around the conversion rate itself. And that was kicked in from a estimated delivery date standpoint, especially when you start adding more and more items into the cart, and then want to get an overall estimated date there. And similarly, this organization also saw some impacts around post-purchase Net Promoter Score, NPS. And so if you're able to make that commitment date accurately on good inventory data and accurate data, and all those other variables that you put into this routing decision, make that date commitment, measure and deliver against it, I think all boats rise with the tide in that. You see the benefit of that be both NPS scores, but overall the lifetime value of that customer and the trust you've now honored with them, that becomes real, and they return to you for the continued purchase. You get higher share of wallet there as well. So you're putting a lot on the at stake here when you put dates in. So my suggestion is to not take it lightly. Make sure you're putting in the right data, operational metrics, because you're putting that lifetime value at risk at each interaction and order experience. And again, that's powered by an order routing solution. So it has everything to do with choosing the right solution, setting it up right, and measuring it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Maybe in particular, what kind of, inputs or replies you've had from your own customers or anything like that, or your own customer experience with your website since you've gone down this road?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that we've seen a few different sort of trends and indications so far. I mean, a lot of folks are opting for that example shown previously of the preferred shipping, get it 2 days faster or so for incremental amount. I think the buy into that has been pretty significant, and that's obviously been beneficial for us to kind of subsidize a lot of the fulfillment costs that we normally would just take on the chin. And so I think I'm going to really sort of play on what Zach was mentioning here with retention. I think the biggest thing that customers want to see is conviction, accuracy, and be confident about what that looks like to further cement their sort of decision-making processes going forward. So, if you say, I'll give you a preferred service and you'll get something by this Friday, and that happens the first time you test out purchasing on a brand's website, your conviction and reliability in what you're seeing is, pretty much maximized. And if that continues over those repeat purchases, then, it's simply you're just building the value and that loyalty for customers to buy from you directly, to subscribe to your own marketing, to engage with your teams if necessary. And I think that's where, we try to think about how do we provide that consistent experience across any channel that we sell. We want our website to be that primary, dominating sort of channel for us that customers would choose first because they're confident in what they're going to get and when they're going to receive it.
That's true. In fact, I neglected to bring that up before. You guys are selling in multiple channels, but it's nice to hear how really, you love all your channels, but your own website is maybe first among equals, as they say. And actually, that's probably a good segue because we've talked about a lot of what the solution can do and what some of the challenges with it. But Mark, to follow up, can you share for the audience here some of the specific benefits that Caraway has seen as a result of going down this path with order routing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I touched on it before. I think cart abandonment dropped substantially. I think it's difficult, as Zach and I were previously talking about in another time, that to isolate how much is attributed to any particular initiative or tool that you put in place is always tricky and very difficult. And our entire team is always looking at trying to analyze that. But I think when you see a significant change and a significant buy-in to that, to those page shipping options, you can really see that the trend is moving in the right direction. And I think that, for us, it's really about gathering the data initially. I mean, we're obviously an early customer. We've been using Phoenix for a couple months at this point. Mm-hmm. And we really, are not the type of sort of brand to put something up, set it, forget it, and just leave it as is. We want to optimize. We want to start analyzing those opportunities and seeing, should we offer a third or fourth different method? Would customers pay more? And, how can we experiment and use all those variables and metrics to sort of drive a decision making? So yeah, the benefits have been great, and we're just getting started. So we're excited to really put this thing to the test.
Well, we're excited too, and that's fantastic. And I guess maybe just to ask you here a little bit specifically, bringing in that upgraded option on your checkout, have you seen specifically an uptick in shipping revenue and the being selected more often?
Yeah, we are. We certainly have collected a lot of shipping income through providing that option because, for us, it's really about if customers are willing to pay for that extra, those couple days, we'll happily take that and sort of add it back to the bottom line. I mean, it's super valuable for us to collect and sort of open up an additional stream of income, whether it be significant, marginal, however you want to call it. Anything to sort of subsidize the operational cost, I'm always a major fan for. Anything that I can use elsewhere to manage my own operational cost is a win for me. So we've seen a huge uptick in folks that are paying for paid shipping options, even when they qualify for that free shipping threshold, which is a very fascinating experiment where, depending on your brand, depending on what you sell and how quickly you can get it to customers, those that, want to receive something a bit quicker and are prepared to pay for it, why not benefit from that additional stream?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. And so we're at the 30-minute mark now in the session. As we continue here, and this has been a fantastic discussion, but this all sounds pretty cool. But I put myself always in the shoes of my clients and retailers out there, and it's like, okay, this is great, but how do I get started? Mark, maybe you first, and then Zach. What suggestions can you offer to a retailer here that says, this sounds really great, but how can I get started?
Yeah, so I think I'll use an example of how we got started. I think it's really going back to the earlier point is doing your homework and ensuring that the infrastructure you have is set and you're confident in that. So, starting with if you're using Shopify, for example, ensuring that the data that you have coming in, the inventory feeds that you have, the locations you have set up are solid and they're accurate and you're comfortable with that current setup. And then at that point, really just about kicking off the experimentation and starting small, starting on the piece that's plug and play, which is everything related to checkout. Of course, there's features and benefits that you can add. You can get ultra specific about how you configure things, but as long as you have your carrier contracts, rate cards, things like that, you can really just turn the switch on by plugging the platform in and just offering a different sort of selection of shipping methods and profiles at checkout to begin with. So start with that, experiment, and always innovate.
Excellent. Zach, what do you think?
I would definitely echo what Mark said. The Caraway team did a great job and approached this the right way. You definitely want to start at checkout and then work closer up funnel. So from checkout and product display pages, and hopefully, if you can, into listing and category pages. So he's absolutely right. You have to experiment with this. I definitely put this in the A/B testing arena. Make sure that you're not impacting good or bad to start. And so you want to A/B test this, maybe start with a certain set of SKUs, a certain set of locations, start with one carrier or another. You can toy around with all those variables. But I would definitely say you want to crawl, walk, run here and start from the closest proximity of place order button and then up funnel. So Mark nailed it with his answer. That's definitely the right way to think about it.
Okay. Are there so many additional, technical or operational considerations that you think are, important to, as you get, as if you think about the retailer getting started? Okay, we talked about infrastructure and stuff, and I know you mentioned a few things early on, but if you were to kind of sort of boil it down or simplify it.
Yeah, definitely. You have to pick the right partner here, both from a technology and perhaps even a system implementer. So doing this, it's worth doing and doing right. So pick the right partner all around in your ecosystem. That's definitely a must. Operationally,
I can think of one to start with. Sorry.
Yeah, you have to operationalize this the right way. You have to create a baseline, implement, and then measure against that baseline. So in Omni Ops meetings, operational review meetings, perhaps even weekly, you need to be looking at these metrics we've been talking about. So Mark alluded to a lot of those that the Caraway team's doing. Have to be able to put this in and measure it. And then on the business side, again, getting the decision made perhaps organizationally and through product management or site experience team. Definitely you have to start there. You have to have done your homework. You have to be able to cite the use cases like Don, you've mentioned here as well. So come prepared with that business case from the get-go. You layer in the operational side and the tech side. You could be moving, like you said, in a matter of a couple of weeks and seeing a pretty substantial increase in conversion and at the same time a reduction in split shipments. I'm not sure any COO or Ecomm VP is going to say no to that set of metrics being moved. So it's easy to get started. Just getting prepared is in the first and foremost. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. We at Phoenix, we agree. And in fact, one thing I wanted to also inform our audience here is as a way of getting prepared and maybe gathering some initial data for a business case, we at Phoenix, just this quarter, we have created or we've deployed a carrier rate simulation engine that can enable our retailers to take past shipment data, run it through our engine, and the point there is we can assess with our algorithmic models if you made the best efficient carrier selection decisions for each shipment, which is obviously a function of the carrier choice, but also a function of where it was routed. And I want to give to the audience here a new client of ours, Bombas. Earlier this year, they ran this engine with us. We picked a month's data. I think it may have been February, and it was 183,000 shipments for the month that ran through the engine. And of that total, 34.6%, or approximately 62,000 of those shipments, the Phoenix engine identified a different carrier service that was cheaper and either met or beat the actual delivery date for that shipment itself. So with that high of decisions, that translated into an 18% savings off of their actual carrier spend, what they spend for those 183,000 shipments for the month. And that took into consideration the volume discounts that they have. So 18% savings off of that actual spend. And when you look at it from a per shipment basis, for those approximately 62,000 shipments that Phoenix said, hey, choose this one instead, that carrier service selection was on average $2.56 cheaper than what Bombas had selected originally. Mm-hmm. And so when you get those kinds of savings, and if you analyze it, that comes out to about $2 million a year. It can be obviously a big impact. And that all sounds great, and that's why I'm saying it. But that kind of a tool, and that's why we're offering it as a free assessment for retailers to qualify. Run the engine. It's your past data. If it helps you build a business case, like you were talking about, Zach, great. And if you don't see that you get much benefit out of it, that's great too. No harm, no foul.
I think the first thing to do, and one of the biggest takeaways is understanding your infrastructure, which therefore means understanding your data and what you can do with it. So, we spoke a lot about the data and how that could shape the options you can provide. And I think two things can be true at once. You can save cost while delivering a phenomenal customer experience with record delivery times. I think those two are super powerful together, and they sort of tick both sides of the L when it comes to that optimal setup. So I would really recommend starting with the basics and echoing Zach, just experiment and try it out, see what works for you.
I think the trend line for estimated dates and the role of an order routing solution is going to become all but commonplace in the coming years. You're starting to see that happen broadly in market. And so getting ahead of this curve, making the case, putting it on the agenda from a digital and site experience, making that case and getting your process and your technology in the right place to act on this is key. I think anything worth doing well is what you want to improve, you have to measure. So I think keeping your eye on the right metrics, understanding how to launch this and scale it quickly, I think you're going to see huge wins in this, and it's going to even further amplify the trend of order routing's role in pre-purchase. And so I'm excited to see that continue. And like I said, it's worth doing and doing right. So do your homework and get going on it.
I think merchants, you need more visibility into your own data. And, Zach, you talked on it about how well Caraway knows things. I would challenge retailers, do you know your customers as that well? When again, it relates to operationally in shipping and fulfillment. It's your own data. So you need more visibility. And there's people out there that we'd be happy to help you. But if you choose to go with someone else or a different route, I think that's really, you're going to gain a lot of benefit by just understanding more of your own business, your own customers, by looking at your own data. Thank you very much for attending today. Mark, Zach, thank you both so much for your insight and participation today. I think this has been a great session. I've had a lot of fun. I hope everyone else did too. And folks, please stay tuned for more sessions from FenixCommerce about key industry topics in e-commerce. Thank you.